Tonight, we step into a poor farming family's rammed earth house on the North China Plain during the late Ming Dynasty, at the very beginning of a long northern winter. The walls around you are the color of dry clay, packed hard by many hands. The air carries a faint scent of stored millet and smoke. Cold brushes lightly against your cheeks each time the wind slips under the eaves. Outside, a wooden ladder leans against a persimmon tree, and someone is carefully lifting the last firm fruit before the frost arrives. You can hear the low whistle of wind moving across the flat, open fields. This will not be a story of emperors or battles or court politics. It will not follow grand events or famous names. Instead, it will stay here, inside this small house, with the steady work of sealing cracks in the walls, packing cabbages into clay urns, and preparing the kang so that when the snow comes and the roads disappear, this family can remain warm, together, and alive. An immersive journey through the long silence of a Chinese winter as lived by the people who survived it. Before the cold arrives, it sends a messenger. You have learned, over many seasons, to understand exactly what that messenger is saying. You are standing outside your house. The walls are made of rammed earth packed and smoothed by hands that have touched them every day for years. The color is the color of the plain itself, pale yellow, the shade of dry grass and old clay. The door behind you is low. You have to duck slightly to pass through it. This could be the flat farmland of Hebei. It could be the terraced slopes of Shanxi's Loess Plateau. The exact dynasty does not matter. For you, time is not counted in reign names or imperial edicts. It is counted in the shortening of days, in the temperature of morning air against your face, in the sound of wind through the eaves. The air, until recently, had been clear and mild. Autumn had been gentle, but today something has shifted. There is a new sharpness in the wind, not the ordinary cold of an autumn evening, something with more intention behind it, a wind that seems to have traveled a very long distance from somewhere flat and empty and white before arriving here and pressing, with small, insistent hands against the back of your neck. You look up. A loose formation of geese moves across the sky, heading south. The sun hangs lower than it should. Its light comes in at an angle that makes everything seem slightly more serious than it did last week. Something old wakes up inside you. Not a thought exactly, more of a bodily recognition, a tightening, a quiet alarm. The kind of knowing that does not require words because it has been in your family for generations before words were needed for it. The season is turning, and you are now in a race. The finish line is not a destination. It is simply the end of winter, and the only way to reach it is to be ready for what comes between now and then. The older people in your village, the ones whose joints have become their own private weather stations, have been watching the wind for days. They listen to the sound it makes as it passes through loose window frames, through the gap beneath the granary door, through the hollow spaces between stacked firewood. Each sound tells them something, a high, keening whistle through a loose shutter. Dry cold is coming, the kind that bites without moisture. A low, continuous moan across the far hillside, snow, and a great deal of it. Somewhere far away, in the capital's astronomical bureau, scholars are consulting their charts. They will note that today, or very nearly today, is Shuangjiang Frost's descent, one of 24 solar nodes that divide the farming year with bureaucratic precision. The official announcement that the growing season is over, that the season of storage must begin immediately. But you are not in the capital. You cannot read. You have never seen those charts. What you have instead is this wind, this sky, these geese, the ache in your grandmother's knee that has not been wrong once in 40 years. The two kinds of knowledge, the official and the bodily, meet somewhere in the middle of your understanding. You do not choose between them. You hold both, and you act. You feel the wind again. This time, it is not a question. It is an instruction. It is time. A pot of pickled vegetables, pressed under a stone in an autumn courtyard, is not just food. It is time converted into safety. It is summer made to last through winter. The whole village has changed its rhythm. The sleepy pace of harvest's end is gone. In its place, a focused, slightly frantic energy that begins before sunrise and does not pause until long after dark. Every household is doing the same thing at the same time. The village moves like a single organism, responding to a signal only it can. Here. You are in the fields before the sky has fully lightened, working through the pale gray of pre-dawn, not only gathering the main crops, the millet, the sorghum, but searching the land for everything else that can be eaten, everything the frost has not yet reached. You climb a shaky ladder propped against the persimmon tree. The fruit at the top is the last of it, still firm and bright. You pick carefully, leaving a few on the highest branches. This is habit, partly, and something more than habit, a recognition that you share this land with others, that the birds who will come after you in the coming weeks are owed something for their patience. The sweet potatoes come next. Each one is lifted from the earth with both hands. You tap the dirt away with extreme care. A single bruise, invisible now, will become a soft patch that becomes a rot that spreads to everything around it in storage. You hold each one briefly, feeling for damage, the way you might hold something you are not sure you can keep. Your wife is in the courtyard. She and the other women of the village have been working since before you left for the fields. The big clay urns are arranged in a row. Each one is deep and wide. Each one will hold a winter's worth of something. Cabbages go in, layer by layer, coarse salt scattered between. The weight of the vegetable compresses against itself. Over the next weeks and months, the brine will draw out moisture, and the whole packed mass will ferment, souring slowly, developing a sharp, clean taste that is nothing like the original vegetable and entirely its own thing. A large, flat stone is placed on top of each urn, not to seal it, to press, to encourage the process. Your wealth this winter will be measured in urns. How many survived intact, How many fermented correctly? How many you sealed before the cold could damage what was inside? Along the eaves of the house, strings of dried things hang like decorations, but these are not decorative. Dried chili peppers, red and wrinkled. Strips of dried eggplant, dark and leathery. Long beans wound into loose coils, pale green turned to pale yellow. Each piece was something heavy and full of water in September. Now it has been reduced to its concentrated self-flavor and nutrition, pressed into something light and keeping. The persimmons require the most care. You sit in the late afternoon light with a small knife. Each persimmon must be peeled by hand carefully, in a single, connected spiral, not too deep, then threaded onto rope and hung to dry. This is not finished when they are hung. Every several days you must return to them and massage each one gently, pressing the flesh to coax the internal sugars outward. It takes weeks. In time, a white powder will form on the surface of each fruit. The first time a child sees this, they think the persimmon has gone bad, but you know better. This white crust is crystallized sugar, glucose, and fructose that have migrated from the flesh and settled on the surface. In a world where refined sugar is rare and expensive, these small, white dusted spheres are precious beyond their size. They are the sweetest thing you will taste all winter. As you work, you are performing a calculation that no economist has fully modeled. How much grain for seed? How much to eat? How much must be set aside for the landlord's man or the tax collector, who may arrive in any month? How much might be lost to mice, or to moisture, or to one bad decision you have not yet made? The margin between enough and not enough is narrow. It is always narrow. It has been narrow for as long as anyone can remember. A batch of pickled vegetables that spoils is not a minor inconvenience. It is February without food. It is the difference between spring and not reaching spring. You press the last stone down onto the last urn. The clay is cool against your palms. You sit back on your heels and look at the row of sealed urns. This is your winter. You made it with your hands. You pressed it into these vessels. You hope it will be enough. A wall is just earth pressed together. But a sealed wall is the difference between surviving the night and not surviving it. You know every crack in these walls by touch. Reset anchor. Let the urns settle in the courtyard. Let the dried things hang still in the last warmth. Breathe slowly now. Follow your own breath in and out, in and out. Now your attention turns from the food to the shelter. The house is small. One main room, perhaps a side room for tools and animals in the coldest months. The walls are thick, that is good. Rammed earth holds warmth the way stone does not. It breathes a little. It settles over years into something almost organic, but it also cracks. After the summer rains and the autumn drying, the walls have opened in small places. Hairline fractures you might not notice unless you press your palm flat against the surface and run it slowly across, feeling rather than seeing. There, a thin gap near the east corner. There, a wider crack along the windowsill. Here, a place where the outer layer has separated from the packed core beneath. Each crack is a door that the wind will find. Each gap is a place where January will enter and sit down, uninvited, and never leave. You go to the edge of the village pond and dig clay, wet, heavy, the color of the earth when it is at its most basic. You mix in chopped straw, short lengths, no longer than your finger. This has been done this way for longer than anyone can trace. The straw fibers strengthen the mud, the way thread strengthens cloth. They prevent cracking as it dries. They create thousands of tiny, hollow spaces inside the dried mixture that trap air and slow the passage of cold. Some families add other things to the mixture: glutinous rice paste, cooked thick, stirred in while still warm. In some villages, a small amount of animal blood. These additions are guarded carefully. A grandmother's recipe for patching walls is not written anywhere. It exists in her hands, in the knowledge of which river clay is best, in the right proportion of straw to mud, in how long to knead before applying. This is engineering without blueprints, improvised, tested by 10,000 winters. You work around the house's perimeter, pressing the mud mixture into each crack with your fingers, smoothing it with your palm, holding your hand flat against the finished surface for a moment to feel the slight warmth of friction, the way the paste grips. When it dries, it will be almost invisible. The house will have healed itself with your help. The windows are the most critical project. There is no glass. Glass exists in the world. You may have seen a small piece once, owned by someone wealthy in a nearby town. But glass is not for you. Your windows are paper. Not ordinary paper. Hemp paper or bark paper thick, with a coarse texture that holds oil. You have been soaking strips of it in heated tung oil, or in rendered animal fat, pressing out the excess with a flat stone, laying the treated strips to dry. When they are finished, they are translucent, not clear. You cannot see the courtyard through them, only the pale suggestion of light. But they are tougher now, slightly water-resistant, and most importantly, they hold against wind. You replace the old paper panels, gluing the new ones with rice paste along the wooden window frame, running your finger along every edge, pressing, sealing the border where the paper meets the wood, where the wood meets the wall. No gap can be left, no courtesy given to the cold. When you are finished, you stand back and look at your work. The house is not beautiful. It was never beautiful, but it is whole. It has been made whole again by your hands, using materials taken from the ground directly beneath your feet. You press the earth into the walls to keep the cold of the sky outside. This is not a metaphor. This is how your family stays alive. You do not simply dress for cold. You construct a second skin, layer by layer, and become a different, slower, warmer version of yourself. The chest in the corner of the room smells of camphor and something older dried herbs pressed between layers of cloth that have not seen light since last spring. You open it, and the smell rises. Inside, your winter clothing. This is not one garment. It is a system. You lift each piece out separately, feeling the weight of it, the density of cotton padding compressed by months of folding and storage. Each piece must be shaken out, examined, assessed for damage. A hole in the lining, if not repaired before winter begins, will become a cold spot that troubles you for months. The innermost layer is plain, coarse cotton. Its only job is to absorb sweat and stay close to the skin. It is not warm in itself, it is a foundation. Then the padded jacket. This is the heart of the system. 2 layers of fabric with cotton fiber packed between them, fluffed and spread as evenly as possible, then stitched into channels that hold everything in place. The stitching runs in parallel lines across the surface of the jacket, creating a rippled, segmented look. This is not decoration. These channels prevent the cotton from shifting and bunching with movement. They maintain the even distribution of insulation that the whole design depends on. In colder or more remote places, where cotton is expensive or unavailable, families use other materials: dried cattail fluff from the riverbanks, scraps of old cloth, shredded and carded back into fiber, dried reeds pressed thin. Whatever the material, the principle is the same. Create still air, trap warmth, keep the cold from finding the skin. Over the padded jacket, an outer layer of the same construction, padded trousers, a hat that covers the ears completely, a length of rough cloth worn around the neck and lower face. When all of it is on, you move differently. You know this. Every winter you rediscover it. The slight lag between intention and motion, the heaviness, the constraint of layered padding at every joint. You cannot reach forward quickly. You cannot bend at the waist with speed. You move through the cold months in a kind of weighted patience, and your body slows itself accordingly. This clothing is not just warmth. It is permission to slow down. It defines the pace at which winter is lived. The shoes are made on the same principle. No leather, cloth uppers. The sole is the craftsmanship, dozens of layers of scrap fabric stacked and stitched together with thick thread in a dense, tight pattern called nati, a sole so dense it is nearly rigid, then treated with repeated applications of tongue oil or animal fat until water beads on the surface. These shoes are surprisingly warm, the sole dense enough to insulate, and the upper padded enough to wrap the foot. But they have one absolute vulnerability: water. Soak them through, and they become cold and heavy, impossible to dry quickly, dangerous to wear. You watch where you step. You choose the long way around the standing puddles. You are careful, the way winter teaches you to be careful. You are dressed now. You move through the room, adjusting. Your arms hang slightly away from your sides. Your breath moves slowly. You are the house's second wall, a mobile insulating layer walking around inside the first one. Cotton changed this land. This unremarkable, soft plant, which arrived slowly and spread slowly, which required care and labor to process, rewrote the terms of northern winter survival. Before widespread cotton use, people padded their winter clothes with things that worked less well, rougher, less efficient, less warm. The question of exactly when cotton became truly accessible to ordinary farming families, whether this was driven by government promotion, by consumer demand, by the pressure of harder winters during periods of climate cooling, is one that historians have not fully settled. What is certain is that the cotton padded jacket, in the form you are now wearing, changed what surviving a northern winter required of a human body. It gave the body's heat back to itself. It made the winter survivable by ordinary people who could not afford stone walls or vast stores of firewood. You stand in the middle of the room, wrapped, prepared, a small, warm world moving through a cold one. You wake to a particular kind of quiet. The familiar sounds of the village have been absorbed by something outside. You already know, before you look, what has happened. Reset anchor, let your breath slow. Let the weight of the padded jacket rest around your shoulders in imagination. Feel the warmth from beneath, from the kang, the platform you sleep on, still holding the heat it received last night from the cooking fire's smoke. Breathe. You are warm. You are inside. Outside, something has changed. The sounds that wake you every morning are missing. No rooster. No neighbor's voice across the lane. No creak of the well rope. No sound of feet on packed earth. All of it replaced by something that is not quiet exactly, but the absence of all familiar sound, a deep, absorptive stillness that presses against the paper windows from outside. You rise from the kang. The air away from its surface is colder than you expected. You pull the outer jacket around you and move to the window. Through the oiled paper, the light is wrong. White, even, without shadow. You push open the heavy wooden door. The world outside is gone. In its place, a version of the world made only from white and gray. The lane that you know by heart, every stone, every rut, every place where the root of the old tree has raised the surface has been smoothed to an unmarked plain. The rooftops, white. The bare branches, white outlines on pale sky. The well, a darker shape rising from white. The field beyond the courtyard wall, a single unbroken surface extending to the gray horizon. The snow has fallen in the night, silently, as it always does. With no announcement, you never hear snow arrive. You only discover it in the morning, already complete. The first thing you do is what the whole village is doing. You find containers, buckets, wooden tubs, a ceramic pot, and move through the courtyard quickly, scooping the top layer of snow, the freshest snow, the snow that has fallen on clean air and has not touched the ground. You carry this inside, placed near the kang's warmth. It will melt over the next hour into water clean enough to drink. Cleaner, very often, than the well, and without the labor and risk of walking to the well on a surface so slicked with frozen surface water that a fall is not unlikely. Snow is an inconvenience and also a gift. You have learned to receive both at once. Now the village is cut off. The path to the nearest market town, which takes an hour to walk in good weather, is impassable. The road is gone. Any kind of trade, any visit to relatives, Any possibility of calling for outside help, all of this has been severed as cleanly as if a wall had been built. The village is its own world now, its own small, complete world. Your neighbors are not simply neighbors. They are, for the foreseeable future, your entire society. You stand in the doorway longer than is practical. The cold presses against your face. The air has a quality you do not find at any other time of year, stripped clean, almost sterile, carrying no smell of soil or smoke or human activity, just cold air and the faint mineral scent of snow. You breathe it deeply. Then you step back inside, close the door. True winter has begun. The world outside is white and locked and silent. The world inside is warm and dark and close. You will live in this inside world for a long time now. You are ready. The Kang is not furniture. It is the center of the world. Every important thing that happens in a winter happens on or beside it. The whole family orbits its warmth. The Kang. You may have heard the word before, but until you have lived on one through a northern winter, you cannot fully understand what it is. Not a bed, not a bench, not a stove. All of these, and also something more. It is a platform of rammed earth and brick, raised 2 feet from the floor, occupying much of the room. Its surface is covered with woven mats. On top of the mats, in the evening, are spread the bedding rolls that the family sleeps in. During the day, the bedding is folded away, and the Kang becomes a table, a workspace, a seat. The genius of it is underneath. When you cook on the stove, the low stove in the corner of the room, the smoke and hot gas produced by the burning fuel does not go directly outside. It travels, first, through a winding network of channels built into the body of the Kang. The smoke moves slowly through this underground labyrinth, surrendering its heat to the dense brick and earth around it. Then it exits through the chimney. By the time you have finished cooking breakfast, the Kang has absorbed enough heat to radiate gently for the next several hours. Overnight, it releases that stored warmth slowly, evenly, like a vast warming stone that holds its temperature through the dark. This is passive heating, no fire required after cooking. The stove feeds the Kang feeds the family's warmth. The end of the Kang nearest the stove, the hottest part, is called the Kang head. This position belongs to the most honored person in the family, the grandfather, the household's senior member, the most important guest, if one arrives. The further from the heat source, the cooler. The cooler the sleeping position, the lower the household status. Children are placed in the middle, surrounded on both sides by the warmth of adult bodies. The family's Confucian order, who bows to whom, who defers to whom, who sits and who stands and who serves, is rehearsed every night on this warm platform. The ethics of the household are inscribed in temperature. All of winter life happens here. Your wife and mother sit at one end, doing needlework by the light that comes through the oiled paper window. A child lies on his stomach, working at something with his hands. You sit cross-legged against the warm wall, repairing a tool. In the evening, the extended family might crowd together here, all of them on the Kang, bodies creating additional warmth, a pile of human beings generating heat through the simple fact of proximity. No room for individual space, no separation between one life and another. This enforced closeness creates frictions. Arguments happen here. Grief is felt here. Secrets are whispered here, or cannot be kept because there is nowhere private. But something else also happens in this closeness, a weave of small knowing what each person is worried about, what each person needs, whether someone is sleeping badly, whether someone is pretending to feel well. The Kang removes the privacy that allows distance, and in removing distance, it creates a particular kind of intimacy that is not chosen, but simply lived. You settle your back against the warm wall, feel the heat traveling upward through your spine. The cold air of the room sits at shoulder level and above. Down here, near the surface of the Kang, there is warmth, real, continuous, reliable warmth. Outside, the wind has risen again. It presses at the paper windows, which flex slightly and then hold. The sound of it is low and complex, a chord made of the gaps and spaces in the walls and eaves. You have heard this sound every winter of your life. You will hear it for every winter you have left. It is the sound of the season itself, speaking. You know how to listen to it now without fear. You just let it be the background, as steady as breathing. In winter, you do not eat for pleasure. You eat to continue. But after months of the same bowl, a single piece of sweetened persimmon becomes the most remarkable thing you have ever tasted. Reset anchor. The Kang is warm beneath you. Your back rests against the wall. Your hands hold a rough clay bowl. The steam from inside the bowl rises in thin threads. Millet porridge. This is what winter tastes like. Pale gold, slightly thick, with a faint nutty quality in the smell. The flavor is mild, almost to the point of neutrality, not unpleasant, just simple, honest in the way that plain things are honest, offering only itself, with no decoration. Beside the bowl, a small dish of pickled cabbage, dark, soft, glistening faintly with its own brine. The color has changed completely. From the pale green of autumn, it is now a deep yellow-brown, the color of something that has undergone a long, patient transformation. You eat a piece. It is intensely salty, sharply sour, a small burst of crispness, then softness. It is everything. The porridge is not aggressive, present, impossible to ignore. Together, they make a meal. The blandness and the intensity, the warmth and the cold tang. Between them, enough. Millet has fed the people of northern China for thousands of years. It tolerates cold. It tolerates thin soil. It tolerates neglect that would kill other grains. In a land where the growing season is short and the soil is often poor, millet is the grain that endures, and so you endure with it, one bowl at a time, day after day. The monotony is real and should not be romanticized. The same bowl, the same dish, the same table, the same gray light through the same paper window, day after day. There is a particular quality to this kind of repetition, not the comfortable routine of a good life, but the functional repetition of a limited one. You are not bored exactly. You are simply not being stimulated, not being surprised, not being offered anything your body does not already know. And then there is the persimmon. When you allow yourself one, and you do not do this often, because they must last, you break off a small piece with careful hands. The white sugar frost comes away on your fingers. The flesh inside is deep orange, concentrated, intensely sweet. Sweet in a way that sugar itself cannot replicate, because this sweetness has been developed slowly, over weeks of sun and massage and patient waiting. It is not just sweet, it is the memory of summer, held in a fruit, the taste of something that was once warm and alive and is now preserved, offered back to you in the middle of cold. There is also the frozen pear. The small, wild pears that were harvested in autumn tart and astringent, barely pleasant fresh, have been placed outside to freeze solid, left in the cold until they turn black, until they become hard as stones. When you want one, you bring it inside and set it in a bowl of cold water. Over the next 20 minutes, the ice shell around it thaws. The interior, now completely softened, becomes a sort of slush held together only by the skin. You press your thumb through the skin at the top. You bring the pear to your lips and draw the cold, sweet, slightly astringent slush outward. It is ice cream, made without any intention of being ice cream, a natural process that arrived at something impossible and delicious. These small variations in the monotony are not trivial. They are events. A single piece of sweet persimmon on an ordinary afternoon is not just food. It is a punctuation mark in a very long sentence. It says, "Something happened today." It says, "Today was not exactly the same as yesterday." It says, "There is still pleasure available in this life, even now." The caloric value of these treats is negligible. Their psychological value is not measurable. You finish the porridge. You finish the pickled vegetables. You set the bowl aside. Your stomach is full. Your body is warm. There is nothing else required of this meal. That is enough. Without electric light, a winter night in rural China lasted 14, 15, 16 hours. The people who lived through those nights found ways to fill them that we have largely forgotten. The sun has set, not gradually, as it seems to set in summer. In winter, it drops. At 3 in the afternoon, the light is already thinning. By 4, it is nearly gone. By 4:30, the darkness outside the paper windows is complete. The only light in the room now, the faint red glow from the stove grate, and the oil lamp. The lamp is the simplest thing imaginable, a shallow clay dish, a wick made from twisted plant fiber, one end lying in the oil, the other end standing up and burning. The oil is coarse-pressed vegetable oil or rendered animal fat. The flame is small, no larger than your thumbnail. It jumps with each breath of air. It throws moving shadows up the walls and across the ceiling. The room shifts and breathes with each flicker. By this light, you work. The hoe handle that cracked in September needs replacing. You have a new piece of wood that has been drying for weeks. By the unsteady flame, by feel as much as by sight, you whittle and shape. The work is slow. It is imprecise by daylight standards, but it will hold. It will be ready for spring. Your wife works on the other end of the kang. She is spinning, drawing cotton fiber between her fingers, feeding it onto a simple hand spindle that rotates between her palm and her thigh. The motion is ancient and automatic. Her hands do not need her eyes. Her attention can be elsewhere while her hands continue. There is a kind of rest available in this kind of repetitive physical work that is different from idle rest. The hands are busy. The mind is free to travel. Your mother is mending. A tear along the armhole of a child's jacket. Her needle moves in and out of the thick fabric with small, even strokes. She holds the work close to the lamp, squinting slightly, her lips pressed together in concentration. Every stitch is a small act of maintenance. Every repair is a rejection of the cold's effort to get through. The children have been allowed to stay awake a little later than usual. Winter is the season of stories, and they know it. They are positioned on the kang, very still, watching the old man who has come to visit from the far end of the lane. He is the village's keeper of narrative. He knows all the old ones. He begins without ceremony. His voice is low and unhurried. There is a story about a general who would not surrender. There is a story about a fox who took the shape of a beautiful woman and visited a scholar's house every night. There is a story about a magistrate who was incorruptible in a world that rewarded corruption. There is a story about a foolish son-in-law whose misunderstandings become more elaborate and more absurd, until the children cannot stop laughing. These stories are not purely entertainment. They carry inside them the values and warnings of the community. What happens to people who are greedy? What happens to people who neglect their parents? What kinds of cleverness are respected? What kinds of cunning are condemned? In a village with no school, no books, no formal education available to most of its children, the stories are the curriculum. The old man with the fox story and the incorruptible magistrate is a teacher who does not know he is one. We cannot fully imagine what it was to live in true darkness, not the partial darkness of our nights, with light visible from windows across the street, with screens glowing in our hands, with the city's ambient brightness never fully disappearing. True darkness, in which the night was genuinely, completely dark for 14 or 15 hours, in which the only light was the oil lamp's thumbnail flame. Was this frightening? Did it press down on the spirit after weeks and months, or did it create something we have lost in inward quality, a closeness to the imagination, a relationship with sleep and dreaming that we no longer have access to? Perhaps both. Perhaps the darkness did both things simultaneously, and people learned to carry both. The old man reaches a moment of tension in the story. He pauses. The children lean forward. The needle stops moving. Your hands go still on the hoe handle. Everyone in the room is together in the same suspended moment, held by a story. Then he continues, and the room breathes again. No one wrote it down. There was no currency involved. But every person in the village kept a perfect record in their head of who had given what, and to whom, and when. Your reputation was more valuable than grain. Reset anchor. The lamp still burns. The flame moves very slightly. The room is quiet now. The children have been tucked in. The old man has gone home. Your hands rest in your lap. Breathe. There is a knock at the door. You open it. Your neighbor stands in the cold, his face tight with worry. His wife has a fever. The dried licorice root he keeps for bringing fevers down has run out. He knows you have some hanging from the rafters. Can you spare any? You turn without hesitation and go inside. From the bundle hanging from a rafter beam, you untie a portion. You bring it back and press it into his hands. He nods, a single deep nod, the kind that carries a great deal of meaning in a small gesture. He turns and walks back into the dark. You close the door. You have not mentioned that he brought you a bundle of firewood last week. When your own supply was running critically low, there is no need to mention it. It is understood. The economy of this village does not run on currency, not primarily. It runs on exchange, continuous, low-level, informal exchange of goods and labor and time and knowledge. No account book exists, but the accounting is perfect. Every person in this village carries a complete record in their memory of who has been generous and who has been tight, who repays promptly and who tends to forget, who appears when there is help needed and who is suddenly unavailable. Today, your neighbor has a fever remedy. Tomorrow, he may help repair the section of your wall the snow has damaged. When his pig is slaughtered next month, your family will receive a portion. When your family faces something it cannot manage alone, a collapsed roof, a sick animal, a sudden loss, you will not be facing it without resources, because you have been building resources all along in the only currency that matters here. Your reputation, your face, is the most valuable asset you hold, more valuable than any stored grain, because grain runs out. A good reputation compounds. A person known to be generous in hard times becomes the person toward whom generosity flows when their own hard time arrives. The village is not a collection of separate households making separate decisions. It is a single organism maintaining its own internal circulation. You are a part of that circulation. This system has virtues that are genuine and significant. It catches people when they fall. It provides a social safety net in a world where no formal safety net exists. A widow with young children does not face winter alone. As long as her husband was known to have been a good neighbor, his reputation extends past his death and provides for his family. But the system also enforces. It demands conformity. It requires that you remain legible to the community, that your actions be readable, predictable, aligned with shared values. Any deviation from expected behavior, any indication of ambition that reaches beyond your station, any refusal to participate in collective obligations, any evidence of self-interest at others' expense risks the withdrawal of the network. And withdrawal of the network, in a bad winter, is not a social inconvenience. It is a survival threat. You return to the kang. The lamp burns on. The flame is smaller now, the oil is getting low. You do not refill it. Better to rest in the dark. You have given away some of your licorice root tonight. You have no doubt received something in return. Not tonight, but at some point, in some form. The account always balances. In the end. The nearest doctor was a long day's walk away. What you had instead was an old woman who had seen 1,000 winters, and a kitchen full of things that had been curing people since before anyone could remember. The child begins to cough. It starts as a small, dry sound, barely audible above the noise of the fire. But in this closed room, in this dense air that has been circulating among the same bodies for weeks, a cough is not a small thing. You hear it, and you feel a familiar tightening in your chest, not in your own lungs, but in the place where parental fear lives. You move immediately. From the shelf, dried ginger, 3 fingers of the wrinkled root. From the bundle, by the door, a section of green onion with the roots still attached. Both go into the clay pot. Water from the melted snow, set over the stove. The smell, when it comes to a boil, is sharp and immediate, pungent, spicy, medicinal. It fills the room. The steam carries it everywhere. This is the smell of someone being taken care of. It has been this smell for as long as this remedy has existed, which is longer than anyone can trace. The old woman from the far end of the lane has heard about the child news travels through a small village, the way warmth travels through a kang. Slowly and completely, and she arrives without being asked. She has delivered almost every child currently living in this village. She has sat with the dying at the end of several dozen lives. She is not a doctor in any formal sense. She holds a category of knowledge that has no formal category. She is simply the person who knows. She sits beside the child, places one hand on the forehead. Not quickly, not diagnostically, she holds her hand there for a while, receiving information. She looks at the child's tongue, tilting the lamp for a better angle. She asks a few questions about the color of what the child coughs up, about appetite, about sleep. Then she opens the cloth bag she carries. Inside, bundles of dried herbs wrapped in paper. She chooses 2, crushes them between her fingers, smells them, nods. These go into the pot. The smell changes something earthier now, more complex, something that has been trusted for a very long time. She may also apply a poultice to the chest, herbs ground with a stone pestle into a rough paste, warmed at the edge of the stove, wrapped in cloth, the warmth and the herbs together, pressed against the child's sternum. Some of what she uses contains compounds that contemporary pharmacology has verified. Ginger's anti-inflammatory properties are real. Certain preparations of astragalus genuinely support immune function. The steam from the boiling herbs opens airways in ways that are physiologically measurable, and other remedies work through mechanisms we do not fully understand, or perhaps through no chemical mechanism at all, only through the warmth of hands, the voice of someone calm and confident, the feeling of being held within a circle of care. The placebo effect, when the one administering care has spent 70 years learning to project certainty, is not trivial. It may, at times, be the medicine. You ladle the soup into a small bowl. You blow on it until the temperature is right. You carry it to the child and sit beside them and offer it one small spoonful at a time. This is how illness is treated here, not with distance and clinical detachment, with proximity, with the full weight of the family's attention pressed toward one small body, with ginger and steam and the old woman's certainty and the ladle's careful measurement of what to offer next. Whether it works tonight is uncertain. You will know by morning. You hold the empty bowl in your lap and wait. The lamp flickers. The old woman sits nearby, patient. The stove makes its slow sounds. The night is very long, but you are not alone in it. There comes a point in every northern winter when the cold is no longer an event. It becomes the permanent condition of the world. Everything, how you move, how long you sleep, how carefully you count your fuel adjusts around it. Reset anchor. Let your breathing go very slow now, very slow. Each breath in, each breath out. Follow the pace of the Kang's warmth. Constant, unhurried, patient. Let your limbs be heavy. Let your thoughts slow with them. This is Da Han, great cold, the deepest point of the calendar. The water bucket at the edge of the room, 3 feet from the Kang's warmth, has frozen solid. You breathe inside the house and see it. Your own breath, visible, a small cloud produced and dispersed in the space of a moment. The world outside is not merely cold. Cold has become the state of nature. What is warm is the exception. What is cold is simply what exists. The fuel is the central anxiety now. Wood, which burns hot and clean and smells of the tree it came from, is kept for the most critical moments. What you burn most of the time is dried animal, dung, cow, or sheep, and the leftover stalks of corn and grain from the autumn harvest. These burn cooler than wood. They burn faster. They produce dense, acrid smoke that fills the room before finding its way through the chimney. The smoke is real. It is in your lungs every day. It is in your children's lungs. The irritation it causes, the chronic cough that the whole village shares in winter, the watery eyes, these are not minor discomforts. Smoke is doing real damage. Slowly, invisibly. The fire that keeps you alive also, in a small way, damages you. This is not a paradox you can resolve. It is simply the arithmetic of survival, where every solution comes at a cost. The calculation now is minimum movement, minimum consumption. You and your family stay on the Kang most of the day, moving as little as possible. Every movement in a cold room costs calories. Every calorie that leaves your body through activity is a calorie not available for warmth. The mathematics of the body in winter is unambiguous. Rest. Conserve. Let the Kang do the work of warmth. Let your body do as little additional work as possible. Time has changed its character. In summer, time moves, with events with the rising and setting of the sun marking clear boundaries. with the rhythm of work in the fields giving each day its shape. Now, time is measured differently, by the rate at which a single piece of fuel burns down, by the length of a child's sleep, by the slow diminishment of daylight, which arrives late and departs early and never fully arrives at all, only a pale mitigation of darkness, not true light, before the dark returns. In this slowed time, something strange is available. Not rest exactly, not sleep, a state between a loosening of ordinary alertness, a slight dissolution of the boundary between thought and image. You are awake, but not engaged. You are present, but not active. The kang is warm beneath you. The cold is real above you. And somewhere between these two conditions, your mind moves slowly through half-formed ideas and old memories, and the shapeless rehearsal of spring, which is so far away it is almost not real, but which you return to anyway, as a practice, as a promise you make to yourself that you will keep visiting until it is real again. Even at the bottom of the hardest winter, there is a day when every family in the village performs the same act of defiance. They make things beautiful. They cook something good. They celebrate the turning of the year back toward warmth. Something changes in the village, not in the weather. The cold is still absolute. The snow is still deep, but there is a different energy in the movement. Of people a slightly quickened step, a purpose that has not been visible for weeks. Spring festival is approaching. You take a sheet of red paper from the bottom of the chest. It has been there since last year, saved carefully. Red paper is a small luxury, but this is a moment that requires it. Your wife has allowed herself into the food stores for something extra, a small scoop of lard mixed into the flour, something that would not be wasted on an ordinary day. The kitchen smells different tonight, warmer, richer. Something is being made that the cold months have not otherwise offered. The whole family gathers to make dumplings. This is the ceremony. Not a religious ceremony, though there are religious elements woven through the holiday. More than that, a ceremony of assertion. We are here. We have made it this far. We choose tonight to eat well, to sit together, to put good things on the table. The cold has not taken this from us. The dumpling filling is meat. Genuine meat, pork, chopped fine, mixed with cabbage and ginger and a little soy sauce. The smell of this filling is extraordinary after months of millet porridge. The children come close to the table without being told. They do not ask for any. They just want to be near the smell. The wrappers are rolled thin, filled, folded, pinched, closed. It requires 2 hands and patience. Everyone at the table is working. Even the smallest child can be given a wrapper and shown the folding. Even a clumsy fold holds. When the dumplings are cooked and put in bowls, and the family sits together at the low table on the kang, and each person lifts the first one with their chopsticks. This is the moment. Not loud, not dramatic, just together, eating something warm and good, having survived to the point where this was possible. That is the celebration. That is what Spring Festival is, at its most fundamental level. You brush red paste onto the doorframe and press the red paper couplets into place. The characters were written by the village elder, who is known for his brushwork. They say things about good fortune in the coming year, about abundance and health. The red is startlingly bright against the pale gray of the earth wall. It is visible from the lane. Other households have done the same. The whole village is asserting, in red and black, that it intends to remain, that it expects a future. There is also the ritual of the kitchen god. On his paper image, pasted to the wall above the stove, you apply a small amount of malt sugar before the holiday. This god, who has been watching your household all year and will soon travel to heaven to report to the Jade Emperor on your family's behavior, should be sent off in a sweetened state. His mouth, made sticky with sugar, will find it difficult to say anything too condemning. This is the calculation, not reverence exactly, more like a pragmatic management of the cosmic bureaucracy. You cannot avoid being watched, but you can, perhaps, influence what the watcher says about you. Does Spring Festival help? Does the festivity ease what has been accumulating through months of cold and confinement and monotony? The answer is yes, without qualification. The psychological lift of abundance, even brief, even modest abundance after sustained scarcity, is real and significant. The collective affirmation that winter is not the permanent state of things, that the year will turn, that there will be warmth and growth again. This affirmation needs to be spoken aloud, needs to be eaten, needs to be pressed in red paper against a gray wall so that the whole village can see it. But it also costs. For the families living closest to the edge, the small extravagance of Spring Festival may mean going deeper into debt, borrowed grain to be repaid in summer, a family's winter balance slightly worsened by 3 days of celebration that could not, culturally, be foregone. The joy and the cost arrive together. Neither cancels the other. You eat your dumpling. The pork and ginger and the thin wrapper all arrive at once in your mouth. The flavor is dense and warm and entirely unlike anything you have eaten in months. You chew slowly. You want to keep it. Your children are eating with small, concentrated faces, each dumpling receiving full attention. The lamp burns higher tonight. The oil has been allowed. Outside, someone is setting off a small firecracker, a sharp sound in the cold air, then silence, then another. Someone has to be awake. While the village sleeps, one person walks the perimeter, making noise to keep the wolves back, checking the animals, sending a signal through the dark. I am here. We are not alone. Reset anchor. Let the warmth of the dumplings settle. Let the red of the paper couplets stay in your mind, that bright, defiant red. Your breath is slow. The kang is still warm beneath you. Everything is very quiet. But someone is not sleeping yet. Tonight it is your turn for the night watch. You dress carefully. Everything goes on. The padded jacket, the outer layer, the hat, the cloth wound around the lower face. You move toward the door. The cold outside is a different category of cold than the cold you experience during the day. Night cold is denser. It presses rather than blows. Your breath comes out and hangs for a moment before dispersing. The sky is clear, a black dome with more stars than you can individually identify. Scattered without pattern, intensely present. The snow on the ground reflects their light back upward. The village is silver gray and perfectly silent. In your hand, a wooden clapper. 2 pieces of hardwood, hinged at one end. You strike them together as you walk. Clack, a pause. Clack, clack. The sound carries through the frozen air, past the sleeping houses, through the paper windows, into the rooms where families lie still on warm kangs. This sound is a message. It says, someone is awake. Someone is walking the village's edge. Someone is between the sleeping families and whatever might come from the dark outside. Rest. All is well. The watch is being kept. You walk toward the communal animal pen at the village edge. The village's animals, a few pigs, some chickens. The essential ox are gathered here, their combined warmth, pressed together in the small space, keeps the temperature inside the shelter slightly above freezing. You can hear them before you reach the gate, the soft sounds of large animals breathing. You check the fence. You add dried grass to the feeding trough. You break the thin ice that has formed on the water surface and make sure the trough is accessible. You look for signs of disturbance at the fences, perimeter, any place where something has been testing the structure, probing for weakness. Then you light a small pile of damp material near the fence. Green wood or wet straw, something that burns poorly and smokes abundantly. The smoke is the point. Its smell, carried on the still cold air, is a boundary marker. It says to whatever might be moving through the darkness at the village's edge, there are humans here. There is fire. This is not the place to come. The animals are the village's accumulated labor. The ox is more valuable than almost anything else. It will pull the plow in spring, will work the fields through the growing season, will make the difference between a family that manages to plant on time and one that cannot. Losing the ox in January to cold or predator is not a tragedy confined to one season. It compounds forward. It means spring comes. And the hardest work cannot be done with the necessary speed. It means the whole year is harder. You stand for a while outside the animal pen, listening. Far away, somewhere beyond the fields, a sound low, brief, wind, probably, or something alive in the darkness that is going about its own survival as you are going about yours. You wait. The sound does not repeat. You clap the wooden blocks together again. Clack, clack. Then you continue your circuit. The village at night. The stars above. Your footsteps in the packed snow. The clapper in your hand. Steady and purposeful. Inside every house you pass, people are sleeping, trusting the system that says someone will be awake, trusting you. Tonight, specifically, the weight of that trust is not heavy, it is simply present. It accompanies you around the perimeter and back to the starting point and around again. You think of spring, probably, the way the mind goes there naturally in the depths of cold. As a destination, a premise, a fact you hold on to even when it seems impossibly far. The ground beneath this snow will thaw, the ox will pull the plow, the seed you have been keeping in the dry corner of the granary will go into the earth and come up, green. This is not hope exactly. It is something more structural than hope. It is the expectation of a cycle that has not yet failed, and therefore you trust will not fail this time either. Clack. The sound travels. The village sleeps. You keep walking. It does not begin loudly. It begins with one drop of water falling from the end of an icicle. Just one. And somehow that one drop changes everything you have been holding. You are lying on the kang. The deep cold of the weeks past has settled into something almost ordinary. The body adapts. The rhythm of cold, fuel, sleep, waking has become the only rhythm there is. You have stopped expecting it to be different. That acceptance, not hopelessness, just the actual settlement into what is, has brought a kind of peace, heavy, motionless, but not without its own quality of rest. And then you hear a sound you have not heard in months, so faint at first that you think you imagined it. You go still. You hold your breath. Listen. Drip. Then, after a pause, drip. Water. Actual liquid water. Falling. From the icicle that hangs outside, the eave, the one that has been there for weeks, unchanging. As solid as iron, something is falling, one drop at a time, each drop landing on the snow below with a sound so quiet it should not be audible through walls, but you hear it. You move to the window. The sun is out. This is not unusual. But today the light has a quality that yesterday's light did not have. It is not just bright. It is present. It touches the side of your face with something that is, unmistakably, warmth. Not the neutrality of winter sun, which gives light without heat. Actual warmth. Small. The thinnest possible layer of it, but real. Not enough to melt the fields, not enough to clear the road, barely enough to release one drop from the end of one icicle. But that is the first note. And once the first note sounds, you have heard the beginning of the piece. You know what follows. Not today, not for several weeks, but now the knowledge of it is available again, where before there was only the suspension of winter and its apparent permanence. The 24 solar nodes include one called Yu Shui rain water. From this point, the calendar says, precipitation will more often take the form of rain than snow. The Empire's astronomers have calculated the moment and recorded it. But in this village, the calendar of the body is faster. You felt it before you heard the drip. Something loosened in your chest. A tightening you had carried so long you had stopped calling it. Anything, it simply was your winter self, has begun, very slowly, to release. In some villages, there is a tradition at this time. Someone walks to the river or the nearby stream where the ice has sealed the surface all winter. They take a tool. They find the thinnest section. They strike it once, hard, and break through. The action is not practical. There are other ways to get water. It is a statement, an action performed on behalf of the whole village, a way of saying, We intend for things to flow again. We are breaking winter's grip ourselves. We are not waiting to be released. We are doing the releasing. But spring is not certain. The calendar says it is coming. The drip says it is beginning. But a late cold snap in what should be spring, what some cultures have named the wolf winter, the winter's last grip can arrive weeks after the first warmth, and kill everything that has been optimistic enough to emerge early. The farmer knows this. You do not trust the warmth completely. Not yet. You let yourself feel it, and you keep the feeling cautious, edged with knowledge. Hope in a farming life is not the same as hope in a life insulated from consequences. It is a more measured thing, more careful with itself. You watch the second drop fall, then the third, each one exactly the same as the others, and somehow each one its own event. Spring will not come all at once. It will come in drops. This is the first of them. Weeks pass, and then one morning there is no question. The snow has retreated to the shaded corners of walls, to the deep places beneath hedges where light does not reach. The path that was buried is visible again. Black earth shows through where the white has been. The air smells of mud and last year's wet vegetation and something alive and mineral and slightly sharp. The smell of ground that has remembered it is ground. You push open the door. You walk outside, and this time you do not retreat. The sun is on your face, full sun, the kind that asks you to lift your chin toward it. Your neighbors are in their doorways. Everyone is doing the same thing, stepping out, looking up, standing still in the light for a moment before the day's work begins. No celebration, no shouting, just people, standing in their doorways in the morning light with the same expression on every face, a quietness that is also a fullness, an acknowledgement that can only be made with the whole body by standing outside in warmth, that the body is still here to stand in warmth. You lived through it. Again, the cycle has turned. Again, and you are still in it. You walk to the edge of your field. The soil near the surface has softened. Not ready, not yet, but close. You kneel and pick up a handful. Press it between your palms. It is still cold, but there is something different in the cold. Now, not the dead cold of January, which held nothing. This cold is adjacent to something alive. The ground remembers what it is for, and you will plant in it, and it will grow, and the year will begin again. Before the planting, before the work, there is a moment, brief and unscheduled, when people walk the hedgerows and the field edges looking for the first wild greens, small, bitter, tender. The first living plants to push through the thawed soil. After months of pickled and dried and salted, these green things are staggering in their freshness. The bitterness itself is a pleasure. It is the taste of something that does not need preservation because it is happening right now, in the present tense, alive in your mouth. You chew slowly. Your body receives it with a gratitude that is entirely physical. It does not know the word for what it needs, but it knows when it has received it. You stand up. The field stretches ahead of you. The work of spring is enormous. It begins tomorrow. today. Only this: the warmth, the wet earth, the small bitter green thing still between your teeth, the sound of your neighbors moving in the lane behind you. All of it exactly as it has always been. All of it enough. Final return now. From a great distance, the field recedes. The figure kneeling in the mud grows small. The village, with its smoke and its muddy lanes and its red paper still bright on the door frames, it fades. The cold that was real grows distant. The warmth that was earned grows distant. The smell of millet porridge, of pickled vegetables, of ginger in a clay pot, of animal dung burning low in a stove, all of it moves away, gently, without disappearing entirely. Because these things persist, not in the world exactly, but in the way the body understands warmth when it has been without it, in the way the first green taste of spring means something specific only to someone who has waited through a long winter to receive it, in the particular quality of gratitude available only to those who have been tested and have continued. You are in your warm room now, your warm bed. The season outside may be cold, or mild, or anything at all, but you carry, from this evening, some small portion of what it meant to live inside the rhythms of a world entirely governed by cold and warmth, by the length of days and the depth of snow, by the small fire under the kang and the paper on the window and the wooden clapper in the dark. You carry the knowledge of what it cost to stay warm, and the knowledge makes warmth mean something more. Let your body be heavy. Let your breath go slow. The kang is beneath you. Its warmth is deep and patient and steady. It has been holding you all evening. It will hold you through the night. The lamp has gone out. The stove has banked to embers. The clapper has been set down. The night watch is keeping its quiet rounds. The village is asleep. And so are you. Deeply, warmly, completely. Sleep well.